Before I introduce our keynote speaker tonight, I want all of you to be aware of a dilemma that I face tonight as an alumnus of Georgia Tech. I've always been a great sports fan. In 1982, when my first son was born, I talked my wife into naming him Vince, after my favorite football coach of all time, Vince Lombardi. When I sent in my alumni contribution that next year, I noted on the form that I had a new son named Vince, and whoever received that obviously didn't know much about professional football. They assumed I had named him after another coach named Vince, and I was immediately put on 10-year probation by the Alumni Association at Georgia Tech. In 1993, I was looking for a new boat. I found just what I wanted over in Valdosta, a sleek 20-foot ski boat. As Larry Munson would say, get the picture. This boat was silver on the bottom, trimmed in red and black. I swear it's in front of my house right now still. I don't know how the Alumni Association finds out these things, but I'm one of the few to have received a lifetime probation now by the Alumni Association. When they find out that I have not only introduced Coach Dooley tonight, but had some nice things to say about him, I don't know what they may do to me. Anyone in the state of Georgia that doesn't know Coach Vince Dooley has obviously been in a coma for the last 35 years. For 25 years as head coach at the University of Georgia, his teams won 1 national championship, 6 SEC titles, went to 20 bowls, and won 201 football games. And as I recall, Coach, about 130 of them were against Georgia Tech. Coach Dooley's past president of the National Coaches Association and of the National Collegiate Athletic Directors Association. He's a past member of the NCAA Rules Committee, of the College Sports Hall of Fame Selection Committee, and of the Olympic Advisory Committee. As much as he did as football coach at the University of Georgia, Coach Dooley's greatest contribution has probably been over the last 21 years when he served as athletic director. During this time, University of Georgia teams have won 60 SEC titles, 13 national championships, including 4 last year. As a Tech fan, I hate to say it, but as athletic director, he has currently probably assembled one of, if not the most outstanding athletic coaching staffs in the NCAA. Please help me welcome back to Mitchell County, University of Georgia Athletic Director Vince Dooley.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. They will certainly put you on permanent probation after that. And obviously you were destined to be a dog. Don't worry about the mix-up and the confusion in names, because when I first came to Georgia 36 years ago, and at that particular time Georgia was going through a very difficult time, and Coach Joe Leaves, the athletic director, came, and everybody was really excited about the new head coach was going to be, and Coach Eves was determined to take on a national search, and finally the word came out that the new coach is Vince, and everybody got excited, thought it was Vince Lombardi, and it's Vince Dooley. And everybody said, who in the heck? The more candid people said, who in the heck is Vince Dooley? But the great thing about youth is that I didn't know that I wasn't that qualified to be the head coach, because really my qualifications consisted of being the freshman coach of a rival school. So I'm just pleased to be here and proud to have the name of Vince, and proud to be at this Hall of Fame. And I want to certainly start by congratulating Jimmy Hayes and all of those that have worked to put this on. And I didn't realize there were so many athletes in this county, in Mitchell County. What a tremendous number of athletes, tremendous number of coaches. I've known Coach Joe Caldwell for a long, long time. I did come and speak at his first banquet. I remember going down to Pelham to the hotel and seeing the picture of the gallant Pelham, who was R.E. Lee's early artillery leader, and that was also a great memory. I do want to start by recognizing Representative Bishop and the other distinguished guests here, as well as all of the honorees. Sanford Bishop and I have a lot in common. We're both from the city of Mobile, along with Henry Aaron. And someone told us all three at the same time that coming to Georgia, we overcame our background. But we are pleased to be here, and I might add that I was very much impressed with his athletic ability when he came off that rostrum on that first thing. You see those quick feet? Any of the old coaches around here might have noticed that, and I thought that was great. Obviously, we've missed some athletes here that didn't come to Georgia. I've already got it tonight about we didn't think Danny Britt was good enough, but Danny, don't be concerned, because I didn't think my son was good enough to come to Georgia. And my wife hasn't forgiven me yet, I might add. I thought our son Derek was a pretty good player when he was a senior in high school, but I didn't think he was quite good enough for Georgia. Barbara thought, how could I sign anybody to go to Georgia without signing him, because she thought he was the best player in the state of Georgia. And as it turned out, we didn't offer him a scholarship, and he walked on at Virginia and earned a scholarship and played. And as it turned out, we played Virginia in the first game. So Barbara had to go through these mental gymnastics as to who was she going to pull for. And I reminded her, I said, don't forget where your bread is buttered. She said, don't forget who you sleep with, too. So it turned out she did pull for Derek. Also, James Jackson, I'm sorry that I wasn't here last year, and he's one that we did get, and I've never known a player that small with as strong an arm. And he could run like a jackrabbit. And he will always be known for one of the most interesting plays ever on national television against South Carolina. I don't know if any of you had the chance to see that game. But it's a great example of why coaches have to really make sure they explain in detail what they have in mind and don't assume anything. There was 6 seconds left in the ball game, and we were going to snap the ball. We had no timeouts, and we had to run 6 seconds off the clock. So I told James during the timeout, I said, James, we've got 6 seconds. I want you to take the ball and sprint out and run and keep retreating until those 6 seconds run down, and then the game is over. And he did with those quick feet. And finally, as the clock ran down to nothing, he stopped and threw the ball on the ground. It took one bounce into a South Carolina player's hand, and he runs 10 yards in the end zone. Now, we're over in Columbia, and there's 80,000 people from South Carolina that are convinced he just scored a touchdown. I'll walk out, and I think the game is over, to shake hands with Joe Morrison, the coach from South Carolina. He won't shake my hand. He says, the referee told me that it's our ball and it's timeout and we got one play left. Well, fortunately, that was the end of the game. I mean, he could have thrown it up in the air. I mean, let's think about it. He could have thrown it up in the air, which did happen one time in a high school game, and they caught it and ran for a touchdown. But old James will always be remembered for one of the most unusual plays ever. But what a great athlete. Coach Rainey, I can't help but look back there and see his son-in-law, Curtis McGill, who played for me, and also his son, Kurt, who also plays for the Bulldogs and will be competing as an offensive lineman. Curtis, I'm proud that you're here, and Kurt, would you both stand up? I'd like to recognize you since you're Bulldogs all the way. I mentioned my wife, Barbara, who I'm pleased that she is here with me tonight. We've been able to be together this whole weekend. We've been on a tour to Savannah and then down to St. Simons and on to Jacksonville, all part of the Bulldog tour. And we've been in a car together, and I have an opportunity over a 3-day period to listen to what she has to say. And it's been 3 days now, and I think we have caught up. I haven't said a great deal, but I've certainly listened a great deal, if some of you know what I'm talking about. Barbara is, she has written a book, and I might mention this in case some of you don't know this, but she has written a book about 25 years of living with a focused football coach. And if any of you have ever read that book, it's called Put Me in Coach. Do not believe all the stories that you read in that book. Some of the stories I don't recognize, and the ones I do, I sure don't recognize them the way she recognizes them. So I'm going to write the sequel to the book the way I saw what she said she saw. So you may be in for that. Barbara and I really, though, we've had a wonderful time. We've got 4 children. We've got 9 grandchildren, 8 boys, only 1 girl. We need more girls for balance, I think. But we've had 35 wonderful, happy years together, which isn't bad out of 40. We've been married, let's see, 40 years. Yeah, that's what it is. So we've done great. But the reason I think that we've been able to do so well for so long is the fact that we believe in some basic values. We both believe strongly in discipline. We both believe strongly in prayer, though we believe strongly in prayer in different ways. When I was coaching, I always believed that we would pray to God and asked Him to help us to do the best we could do, and then the rest would take care of itself. Well, Barbara didn't believe in that. She believed in going right to the source and praying to win. I mean, she thought somebody else would be praying on the other side, so she wanted to trump that, because you never know. But to give you an example, the night before we played Notre Dame for the national championship in New Orleans, we came into this marvelous auditorium, big auditorium, where they had a reception for all of the distinguished guests and all of the dignitaries of Notre Dame and of the University of Georgia. So as we walked in, she immediately spots Father Hesburgh, who is the distinguished president of Notre Dame. So she runs up to him right away and says, well, Father, I know that you and your network throughout the country tomorrow will be praying for victory for old Notre Dame. Well, Father Hesburgh, very distinguished, said, well, Barbara, my God doesn't have time for football games. And Barbara said, well, that's good, because mine does. and fortunately he did. This is, I think, a real great tribute to this community, to be able to recognize, not for the simple point of recognition, but that is good too, because it helps to bring back this camaraderie of a community. But I think it also should serve as an inspiration to a lot of young people. I went down and saw the Hall of Fame, and I think that's just great, but I can imagine young people having a chance to go in there and maybe dream one day that maybe their picture can be up there on the wall. And also to understand that if you work hard enough and you commit yourself to something, and it may not just be athletics, it's whatever you want to be. If you want to work hard enough and commit yourself to do it, there's no limit to what you can do. And the success of the people that have been inducted tonight and those that were inducted last year had to come from a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice, and also maybe the lesson that's so important, and that is the ability to say no. To say no to things that are out there that look very appealing. And it's particularly true with all of the opportunities that young people have today to be able to say no. I think that I recall a story that I've always remembered, and this was about Robert E. Lee, and I have a great affection for him. This was after the war, and he was a president of what was then Washington College. And he was attending the baptism of a friend whose little baby was being baptized. And after the baptism, the mother came up to General Lee and said, "What advice would you give me in raising my son?" And he simply said, "Teach him to say no. Teach him to have the ability under the most difficult circumstances, under temptation, under pressure, peer pressure that a lot of our kids get, to be able to say no." And it's always impressed me. So I think these are the kinds of things that you're passing on, hopefully as a way of inspiration, as a way of teaching the younger people that are coming along and looking for heroes, looking for people that they can emulate. And that also shifts back the responsibility that you, as coaches and as athletes, have. Because by being inducted into the Hall of Fame, you have a responsibility. That there are a lot of people looking to you and to see the way you act and the way you live. So with this honor does come responsibility. I want to just tell you two things tonight, two experiences that I've had that are things that I think are important, that meant a lot to me. One is the word preparation. And I think that all of you that have been inducted tonight obviously put in a lot of preparation, or you would have not done as well as you have. Preparation, and whatever you do, is extremely important. I know that I attended a banquet at the NCAA, and it happens every year, where they honor what they call the top 6 or the top 7 for the silver anniversary. What they do, they take former student athletes that were great athletes that have gone out into different phases of life, and they have brought them back after 25 years because they've been extraordinary successful in whatever phase of life that they chose. In this particular year, they were honoring 6 very distinguished student athletes that have all done well in different fields. And the spokesperson for all of these other 5 was a fellow by the name of David Bing. Now, David Bing was a tremendous basketball player at Syracuse. And he was a great professional basketball player. And he built a tremendous business in the city of Chicago. So I was anxious to find out what made David Bing so successful, not just as a basketball player, but what profession that he chose in building this business. And I was really surprised to hear what he had to say, but he said that what has inspired him so much and what has meant so much to him, and every coach here will take great pride in this, he said, is something that my old high school coach used to always tell me. He called it the 5 P's. And he said, I have it on a plaque right behind my desk, and it goes, proper preparation prevents poor performance. The 5 P's, proper preparation prevents poor performance, from his old high school coach. And that, I think it shows how much influence high school coaches can have on their athletes. And in this case, it was a very simple but substance statement. People have asked me many times, what advice would you give young people? And my advice would be, teach them to be lucky. Teach them to be lucky. Because chance plays such an important part of how someone maybe gets opportunity. But if one can approach every job that they have, and there are a lot of jobs with a lot of drudgery, but if they can approach every job like this is the most important job that I ever had, and work at it, and then when opportunity does come, if one is so self-disciplined that whatever they do well, that they will be able to take advantage of those opportunities, by the preparation that they've made, and it's amazing how lucky you can get when that happens. When preparation meets opportunity, which is luck in 85 to 90% of the cases. And I say 85 to 90% because every once in a while we have to look up and say thanks. I know I've done that, and some of the coaches here have done that in some of our football games or some of our basketball games. I know we were playing Kentucky back in the late 70s, and that particular night everything had gone wrong. We were down 16 to nothing. Nothing went right. We were hanging in. Finally, we got a break in the midway in the fourth quarter, got the ball and scored, made it 16-7. And then got the ball back and made it 16-14. And then after holding Kentucky with about 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, we got the ball on the 20 and we started a drive. And Munson started counting down. 342 seconds, 341. And we go all the way down the field to the 12-yard line, and with 3 seconds left, I called timeout to send my kicker in, Rex Robinson, who was the kicker out of Marietta at the time, to kick the field goal that's going to give us the victory. And when we broke the huddle, I knew we were in trouble because our right tackle was missing, which means that our corner was short, and they're going to block the kick. If they don't block it, it means we missed it. And even if miraculously we had made it, they would penalize us for not having enough people on the line of scrimmage. Well, at that very moment, as we broke the huddle to line up, I turned to my right, and standing right next to me is my little tackle, Timmy Morrison. So I reached up and put my arms around him and massaged his neck a little bit. And I said, Timmy, what are you doing? Well, I was ready for all the answers because I'd heard them all then. It's about 18 years I've been coaching. But I wasn't ready for what he said. He looked down at me and said, Coach, I'm praying, which is what he was doing. He got so caught up in this emotional drive on this last drive that he forgot to go in, and he just started praying. And I said, well, Timmy, I want you to know that Coach Fran Kersey, he was a coach at Kentucky then, Coach Fran Kersey has just answered your prayers because he has just called timeout, which enables me to get your fat self into the game, you see? So he went in, and the kicker went in, we kicked the field goal, and we won the game. So at that particular point, you got to look up and say, thanks. The second thing that I want to just mention to you, and the last thing, is that one of the great parts of coaching, and again, these coaches here tonight saw examples of it, to see players that are as great as they are, but they still respect the coach, and they appreciate the lessons that were learned. And that's been one of the greatest parts of coaching and teaching too, because I think only in coaching and teaching where you really have that kind of influence. And one of the greatest things that anybody could say is a simple thanks, coach. Thanks, coach. And what that means to a coach and what that means to a teacher is something special that a lot of people don't have. And I've enjoyed that experience. And every once in a while, you share in the great times, you share in the tough times of your athletes, and particularly those that come along and are extraordinary, because they're all special in their way. But every once in a while, one of them comes along that really is extraordinary, and I'm talking about this particular individual by the name of Billy Payne. Now, Billy Payne, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably very few people would know Billy Payne except the most rabid Georgia fan. But Billy Payne was a heck of a good football player. He was on two SEC championships, 66 and 68. And Billy was a scholar athlete. He was vice president of the student body. When he finished Georgia, he went to law school, and we coached as a graduate assistant. and finished the law degree, and then went to Atlanta to earn his money as a real estate lawyer, and did extremely well. Did extremely well. But about, I guess it's been 12 years ago now, he came to me because there was something grinding inside of him that just wasn't satisfied, and he was going to share a dream with me. And he just sort of hesitated and didn't really, never got to the point. And finally I said, Billy, what's on your mind? He said, Coach, he said, I have saved enough money. Now listen to this. I have saved enough money that I want to volunteer my services to bring the Olympics to Atlanta, Georgia. Now, picture yourself 12, 14 years ago, somebody telling you that. My first reaction, the Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, who knows where Atlanta, Georgia is at that time. But secondly, more importantly, the United States just had the Olympics in Los Angeles. They never bring it back to the same country that fast. And thirdly, there is no city in the history of the Olympics that ever won it on the first bid. And fourthly, this is the centennial of the Olympics, and Athens, Greece, where it all started, would surely win. And he's telling me that he's going to volunteer his services, not make any money, to bring the Olympics to Atlanta, Georgia. Well, my first thought was, Billy, those old licks that you took out on the field, I mean, they're caught up with you. Something wrong. But I didn't say that. I said, well, you know, how can I help? Now, telling me that is one thing, but can you imagine him going to a big corporation and say, I want to bring the Olympics to Atlanta, Georgia, and how about giving me $100,000 or $500,000? He couldn't get anybody to sponsor him early on, only his very close friends. And then all of a sudden, Atlanta upset Minneapolis for the right to represent the United States at Tokyo, where the 5 bid cities came. And I was there that night. And what a night it was, because Billy Payne, I saw Billy that day, his face was as white as my shirt, because everything that he had done, hadn't drawn a dime for 3 years, 4 years, had come down to this moment. Because this would be the moment they would announce who would win the Olympics. And I'm sitting next to his family. I'm sitting next to Elizabeth, his daughter, who was in school. And Juan Samaranch comes out with all the IOC members, and he opens that envelope, and when he does, the daughter, Elizabeth, grabs my hand and squeezes it, and I'm about to melt. I mean, I can't, about to go, and all of a sudden, Samaranch in that Catlin voice said, the winner of the 1996 Summer Olympics is Atlanta. Well, you may remember where you were at that moment, but at that moment in Tokyo, it was nighttime, 9 or 10 o'clock, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. The explosion and the emotions of electricity that happened, for the Georgia people, that is, was just something that I can't even explain. I mean, I got so carried away, I started hugging his wife and his daughter, and I just got so emotionally involved that I started crying. I mean, tears were coming out of my eyes, and at that moment, Bill Hartman, who was up at Channel 2, stuck a camera into my face to interview me, and Barbara was sitting on the couch watching it at 7 o'clock that morning, and she saw me crying on television. And she got mad. She said, you didn't cry when we got married. And you didn't cry when our first baby was born, and here you are in Tokyo crying. Well, at that particular moment, it meant that much to me. But when Billy first shared his dream with me, and Billy now, of course, whenever you get into a position of the responsibility that he got into, and he has caught the wrath of the media, and he's been criticized, and he's gone through some tough times, and he's got a bruise here and a bruise there, but he's still standing on his feet, and he's still standing strong. But when Billy first told me about his dream, I went to my office, and I found a stanza of a poem that I thought would fit the situation perfect if this maybe impossible dream ever came to be. And I'll read it to you. It says, to dream anything that you want to dream. That is the beauty of the human mind. And it is the beauty of the human mind because you can sit there, those in the back can stand, I can stand. We can dream anything. There's nothing that our mind won't let us dream. To do anything that you want to do, that is the strength of the human will if you want to do it bad enough. And obviously those that have been inducted tonight wanted to do what they have done to be recognized bad enough. And then to trust yourself to test your limits. And often maybe we don't trust ourselves to reach sometimes beyond our limits. I'm sure when Billy Payne went to these corporations and asked, and they said, are you crazy, Billy? That he trusted himself to extend his limits. But to trust yourself to test your limits, that is the courage to succeed. And I've had a great experience being a coach. And those are some of the experiences that I want to share with you. Those are some of the experience of athletics. And that's why tonight is important. Because it does bring credit to your community. It brings some camaraderie. It brings people back together. But it also will tend to inspire others that will come along. Now, I started with my wife, Barbara, and I got to finish by telling you a story. She has been a great partner for all of these many years, and partners can be good partners during good times, but where it's really important is during the difficult times. And she's been a good partner in the good times and the difficult times, and kind of helps me to stand straight. And I never will forget that one of the good times and the difficult times took place about the mid-70s, because we ran an offense in the mid-70s called the Veer triple option offense, where the quarterback takes the ball and gives it to the dive back, which is the first option. The second option, he fakes it to the dive and keeps it. And the third option, he fakes the dive, fakes the keep, and pitches it out to the trail man. And we ran that so well in the mid-70s that we were among the top 5 scoring teams in the country 3 straight years. And then the next year, we added the 4th option to the triple option, and that is to drop it on the ground. And it's anybody's option to get it. Well, we executed that part of the option so well that year that we broke a Georgia fumble record by 18. And I'm sure if we'd have gone to a bowl game, we'd still be holding the world's fumble record, the national fumble record. We only missed it by 4. But I remember coming home before the game with Georgia Tech, with still a chance to break the national fumble record, and not feeling good. And I mean, in this business, as you know, when you're high, and when you are low, you are really low. The old saying, the highs are never as high as the lows are low. And it's so true. And I was low, and I came home, and it was on Friday afternoon. I come in the house, and Barbara's all smiles, and she's happy. She said, Vince, I just heard the cutest play that we got to put in. I said, Barbara, I'm in no mood for any cute plays. She said, no, I'm serious. We need to put this in for the Tech game. And I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, well, the offensive linemen break the huddle, have them come up and line up with their tails facing the defense, so that when we fumble, they'll be in better position to recover the ball. So it's that kind of inspiration that has kept me going all these years. Once again, I congratulate you, congratulate all the honorees, and congratulate you on really something very special for this community. Thank you.